most of the time. And I just felt I just had to chat tonight a little bit. And I know there's probably only a couple people, if that. But and it's kind of funny because on YouTube doing a live cast, it's you want to start off with talking to the people as you would in a video, but most people don't watch a live later. So it's almost like that's why I see people start a live and then they'll just kind of be like, "Oh, I'll be back in a minute." But I know some of my subscribers come in later and will watch it maybe the next day or whatnot. Because honestly, in my live casts, it just allows me to interact better with the people who are watching. But um, I feel we need so much of that right now. And not just at this moment, but over the past couple decades, we've grown more and more distant from each other as human beings. We've grown more and more distant from purpose, from meaning. And I've seen it, and I try not to let my opinion of the world, gauge what I think everybody else is thinking, right? Because I'm well aware that I'm one guy, and all of y'all out there have your own viewpoints, you have your own trials and tribulations. So, like with the title of this saying, where do we go from here? That's, just so subjective. It's unbelievable. And I acknowledge that. Um, People are in so many different situations that it's hard for us to see where other people are coming from sometimes. I think a great example that just jumped into my head was a post I saw earlier. Um, I don't recall who posted it. It was one of these, I think it was on the home page because it was one of the larger Inside Edition or some shit like that. But it was saying, Hollywood actors are calling for people to, what was it, go on a general strike, right? And I was like, boy, that must be nice for them. Being millionaires, that's you have no idea what it's like for people who have to work and pay their fucking rent and mortgage, right? You can't just like tell the nation, just stop working, stop paying your bills, stop buying stuff. It's like, yeah, you got a baby crying in the crib at home. You got to put gas in your car to get to work. It's fine. You could tell your boss, oh, hey, I'm taking a strike here. Oh, yeah, okay, you're out of here. The funny thing is, truth be, the last general strike that happened in this country was actually in 1886. And it was workers demanding fair wages. And I'm not sure if that's when the Pinkertons were formed or not, but many of the early security agencies that were formed in the country and police forces were designed to protect corporations. So even to this day, most of the police forces, um, they protect the municipality, right? They protect the people, right? But they used to have protect and serve on the side of their card. I guess that's kind of slipped away over the years. I think but anyway, I don't have a problem with all cops, but I definitely have an issue with cops that don't speak up when other cops do corrupt things. And I guess that's a really great example of how I'm feeling today. For people who have power or influence to stand by and watch corruption, to stand by and watch people do harm. I've always thought, well, okay, the old what is the old saying? I was just following orders, right? Or in Washington D.C. will be like, oh well, my hands are tied. They're afraid of losing their jobs, right? Afraid of losing their prospects for the future, and all I can think is tough shit. Like as an American, you took an oath, right, to protect the country. And I thought, wow, it's fascinating to kind of watch it in real time reveal itself. It's not something that I wasn't aware of before. The corruption before was just behind closed doors. Um, but right now, for lack of a better saying, we're at a turning point, and I feel like the air has heavily shifted in the last few days. And I know sometimes I have to step back and say, is this all in my head? Is this part of a psyop? Is this programming? When I talk about things like that, I've had people like, it's funny how many people have said, "Oh, you probably watch too much mainstream media," when I actually haven't watched any mainstream media in like 20 years. It's not my interest. I try to follow people who I trust. Okay, so I don't like the pundits that about politics all the time that have to make a dollar off of it. I like the people who are just curious, the sleuths, the people who like, well, this is what I found happen, and the people who take the time to actually like look into something. And it never ceases to amaze me how quickly people jump the gun on things. I mean, we're all guilty of that, trying to understand the world around us, but it, that that's part of the problem that we have right now. We're living in different worlds, but to such a degree that I didn't realize, I guess, how over the last, like when I was younger, we all have a different impression of the world. And I knew there were a lot of dumb people out there, but I just didn't realize, how mean so many people were or could be. And then I heard this guy talking earlier about the angry monkey. It was a Terrence McKenna talking about humans, and the angry monkey, basically saying, if you watch primates, they'll live peacefully together, everything's fine 1 minute, and something happens, and the next minute, all the fucking monkeys are going crazy and fighting and screaming. And sometimes tribes will interact with one another. I guess you could call them tribes. But yeah, sometimes they'll just attack each other, murder the hell out of each other. It blows my mind that that temper just is right below the surface with most primates. And it's the same with humans. So this is why I've always thought it's not about how bad things could get. It's about what happens when there's the tipping point where enough people are angry, to where there are a bunch of screaming monkeys in a cage, all of us, about one thing or another, and it's like, well, what's the point? What are we fighting for? Who are we fighting for? And a discussion that I heard this morning was somebody who was talking about a commenter they had said he's an anarchist, and the guy was trying to say, well, there's no rule of law, there's no point. And I was trying to explain to the guy, I said, it's not that anarchy means nobody's in charge. Humans have a natural tendency to create a hierarchy within their communities. There's one straight difference. The person who's chosen for leadership, if they make a mistake, they get their ass kicked, right? I mean, you want to do the best for your people, right? And you're watched, not you're not watching other people. Um, but it's the world we live in. It's the world most people have grown up in and not even realized. It's not just the current administration. We live in a police state. We have for a long time. This shit's been unfolding since way back in the day. Yeah. So I don't know where we go from here. Just wanted to say hello. I saw somebody commented, Glenn. Hey, Glenn, good to see you, my friend. And yeah, comments always welcome, because that's why I do this. I like to interact with the audience. I like to talk to you guys live because it's more fun. Hey, Coyote, it's good to see you, my friend. Yeah, I want to hear people's opinions and viewpoints on these things, because I don't do this to hear my own voice as much as you might think. A guy on YouTube talking all the time. I do this because I really enjoy reading people's thoughts on it, and of course getting feedback on my own thoughts, because as a human, I'm trying to figure out what's right and wrong, what not, in the sense of not good and bad, or good and evil, but um, what's good for humans, right? Somebody I was listening to the other day was just some podcast, and the guy was like, "Yeah, that's really all I want to know." He's like, "What are humans? What should humans do?" And then some other guy I was listening to him. He was talking about animals and how they just know what they're doing, and how, we envy them because they don't get up and wonder, how do I go about my day, right? But the trade-off is, we have intellect, we have intelligence. We give up a lot of that intelligence because it's too hard to think. Like, it's painful. If you have to wake up every day and like do a lot of thinking, it drains you. It really does. And I think they say that, like, heavy thinking, heavy brain loads take as much as physical exertion, use as many calories. um, it's a data processing center up there. Of course, I don't believe everything just happens in your brain. I think that there's a lot more to it than that. But that's a spiritual discussion, which I don't know if is appropriate for this discussion. It's up to you all. But there's like the spiritual side of life, and then there's the world that I live in, where I have to interact with these fucking crazy people, and the people who are in charge, who run the show, who seem to think that we owe them something. And I look around at all my fellow Americans, and I'm like, look, everybody I know in the real world, they're just trying to get by. Wake up, have your coffee, go to work, come home, make a YouTube video, wonder what tomorrow's going to bring. And it's got me thinking a lot about like instability and what happens when a society doesn't feel stable, when people don't feel stable. And I think it's a lot more harmful than people realize. It doesn't take much to turn people into angry monkeys. And I don't want to be an angry monkey. I don't. Maybe I'll turn these lights on. They're kind of bright, but oh, I can turn them way down though. There we go. That's a little better, but at least I'm not totally in the shade here. But anyway, I went through a period, I think we all did, around 5 years ago, when everybody went a little wacko because we were in lockdown. If you lived in the city, I feel for you. I lived in the suburbs there, and everything was closed, but we have a short school bus. I got cut off for a minute. I don't know where there, but took it up to Mount St. Helens off like Highway, I think 504 or 503. I think it was 504, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's a road that goes all the way up almost to like the Cauldron, or where it blew up, and there's a park at the end, but it's a big highway that goes way up into the mountains and then ends at Mount St. Helens. And there's no way. That's the only way in or out. And they have these like vistas on the side of the road. And so we just pulled over to one and just camped there for a night with the kids. And it was so beautiful and quiet. Nobody came up the road. And then around 3 in the morning, I hear this roaring engine. Some fucking backwoods assholes in the pickup came roaring. They turned around and came roaring through the little pullout and just wah, wah, wailed on a really loud horn, and then just peeled off down the street. And I thought, here's a family enjoying a nice quiet evening. Here come some assholes blaring their horn. But also, I realized that's America for you. That's part of the experience, right? People can take it personal. It's probably some young kids having fun, just fucking with people. It doesn't matter. The thing is, we we take shit way too seriously these days. I mean, I think that we have gotten down to the point where we want to battle about just about anything. Have you noticed how hard it is to have a conversation with anybody anymore? And I thought it was just me. I'm always cautious because to talk about things that I'm like, well, my perception is, you know, you create your own reality to an extent, but, you know, uh, I had to watch this for a while unfolding. And I have found a lot of people do, they say that nobody smiles anymore, nobody nods, nobody looks at you. And I'm like, in my case, people do. People do talk to you, but it's hard. It's hard to get people to warm up because we assume that the other person is what? They're just another human going about their life. And it's so draining on a person who's empathetic. And I never really took myself that way. Other people, when I see other people in pain, it really fucking hurts me. And I've always thought, well, that's just normal. And then lately I've started to realize it. I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't think empathy is as common as I realized it was, or I thought it was. Like, and maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe I just care too much about certain things. I feel like I take on certain pains, but not others, so it makes it difficult. But I just think that if everybody was kind to one another, we can move forward with a better world. And it would be so fucking beautiful, but I don't believe in a utopia. It's a very complicated, and it goes down to the spirituality part. Trying for me, my like spiritual beliefs don't, you know, it's kind of a just live and let live and do what you can. Individuation, Carl Jung type stuff. And I'm really into like, Eastern mysticism and philosophy. And I just want to know who I am, right? And so I remember some situations where I was just, say, in a state where I felt I could ask any question, and I did. And I got the answer I wanted, but it was what I knew the whole time. It's like we know ourselves, we just have to get to know ourselves again. And that's part of individuation. But if you're on that path, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're on that path, you also aren't the kind of person who would harm another or steal from another person. That you want to do the right thing, that you want to try to hold to the social contract. Even if you might not agree with it, you still try to hold to the social contract. And what is a social contract? Well, it's that if the people go about our lives and we do the right thing, we work hard, we follow the laws, we pay our bills, then we shouldn't have to worry about, let's say, having our doors kicked in without a signed warrant, or have to worry about being shot dead in the street. And yeah, if that pisses somebody off out there, then too bad, because that's what happened. And we're living in weird times that I'm trying to navigate too, because I live a life where I'm far away from the city now. I'm really grateful to be out here. But I moved here, like, I wanted to get away from the city for a long time for a reason, because I expect chaos. And it's one of those situations where it's like people are exhausted saying, yeah, the future is going to be grim before it gets better. And I think it will get better. I just think it's going to take some time. And I think we haven't seen the worst of it yet. And, a lot of people they're really resistant to the potential for some chaotic event to happen. Even, friends that I've known who, like, if I talk about a potential disaster apocalypse, they're like, I don't want to hear it. Like, it's really a thing with people. They're like, there's curious people, and then there's people who just want to live their lives, follow the norms, do what they're supposed to do, supposedly, and that makes them happy, and that's fine. I have nothing wrong with that. If I mean, that's what you would call a sheep, of course, but don't be offended by being a sheep. In fact, I wish I was a sheep. I wish I didn't know some of the things that I know, and I'm not saying that I know a lot. I've also learned enough to know that I don't know shit, and that makes it even harder because now I doubt myself. So that's why I think that humans are bound to kill ourselves with our own wisdom. And I think something better might arise, but it sure as hell shouldn't be technology. Oh God. I mean, the whole AI tech bros thing is just, ugh. I'm just gonna read through the comments. Hello, freestyler. Hello, did for love. Mouse Utopia. you know, the Mouse Utopia thing, I don't know if I'm thinking of maybe the rat one, but I remember there was one where they gave the rats options of like, um, well, I think it was the one where Ratopia Maybe it was Moustopia. Anyway, where they were taking cocaine over water or whatever, but then when they redid it recently, more recently anyway, where they gave him a really nice, yeah, a really nice cage with furnishings and everything, then they were more likely to just, to not take the drugs. But yeah, we're all drugged up because we live in a society where we have to be to function. And I know there are people out there who are completely clean and sober and use no substances whatsoever, not even pharmaceuticals. I commend you. I do. I really do. That is amazing. But I don't know anybody personally like that. Like everybody I know drinks, even a person who's like, I don't take anything at all, and they're drinking their like fifth cup of coffee, right? Or smoking a cigarette. It's like, I'm sorry, a drug is a drug. I mean, alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, all these things. Yes, even certain herbs like kratom, which people have asked, do you still take kratom? I'm like, yes, I do. Uh, 15 years, I think now. I don't take that much though. And I found that, a lot of people worry way too much about whether they're going to die from some random herb that's been taken for a long time, but they're willing to take like pharmaceuticals from the doctor, no problem, even after knowing that there's so many recalls on these drugs and that the drug companies hide the information. Like it's really hard to live in a sick society like that. That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It says that it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Who said that? It is no measure of health to be adjusted. Yeah, to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So yeah, don't be the guy who thinks that where we live and the situation we live in right now is normal. It's normal for the times. It's normal for what we've created, if that makes sense. For the moment, I was listening to one of my favorite shows, one of my favorite podcasts on Spotify. I think he has a YouTube channel too. His name's Mark's Mystic Mark, but the podcast is called My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, and I started listening to it a few months back, and I have just skipped through some episodes, but I'm kind of hooked on it. It's great. He just has random guests on there that talk about, you know, their weird beliefs, and I love the title because some of my beliefs, my family probably thinks I'm crazy too, but I keep them to myself. But I think it'd be fun to kind of do a show like that. And there was a point to that. It had to do with whatever I was just talking about, which is easy to forget. But Mystic Mark and the show. Damn it. Well, I can look it up later. Maybe I'll post something about it. I've learned quite a bit about. I've always been. Oh, it was about ancient Egypt, and it would come to me. But they were talking about how some of the pyramids are even more amazing, like the complex of the three at I don't remember which ones, but um, the speed and accuracy with which these were built, including the bent top pyramid, right? And ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated with the pyramids, and like everyone else, right? I thought one day they're going to decode this. We're going to figure out what it means and why they were built. And it's embarrassing the shit that the Egyptologists still come up with. The leading Egyptologist over there is Zahi Hawass. He's well known for being a complete douchebag. And I'm sure he's got some fans, but honestly, it's just the way he talks to people and goes about it. Like, we constantly change what we think of history by new discoveries, but Egypt wants to preserve its heritage, right? So they don't want to think that it might go back further, or there may be information to lead that. It's just the attachment people have to ideas. It's kind of funny, but I think one day we will discover what's there. I was also really into Edgar Cayce back in the day, and he predicted that under the Sphinx's paws is a chamber, right? And that chamber has the hall of records, and supposedly in that hall of records is, I guess, the information about humanity's past that was preserved after the destruction of Atlantis, which has always fascinated me too. And I don't necessarily believe Atlantis was a real place. I'm aware of the Riyadh structure that they found out, or Reikat structure that they found, which looks like spirals out in the desert, like it could have been Atlantis. I don't buy that either. Um, I take Atlantis as a metaphor. I believe Plato put it in there because it was a metaphor for a deeper understanding of humanity that, I'd have to spend a lot of time talking about. This book would help if you ever want to get into this shit. um, The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall, and it's no small book. This book is like 700 pages, but it's everything you could imagine about, the occult, the truth about Freemasonry and symbolism. I mean, it's shoot, the pages. Rosicrucianism. Dun, dun, dun. And I got a lot of flack back in the day. I used to talk about this shit on my YouTube channel, and I realized how many Christians get angered by it. Like, that's satanic, that's evil. Like, please, if there's ever a time, Christians in the past benefited from talking to Buddhists and incorporating meditation into the early Christian practices. If you study the early practices of Christianity, even some today, traditionally they would incorporate all kinds of teachings about the deeper understandings. In other words, I guarantee you that the church leaders don't believe the earth is 6,000 years old, and we shouldn't either. Like, it's a matter of combining our new knowledge about, okay, things are older than we thought, but that doesn't change the fact that we're evolving. What are humans? Why are we here? Are we God? Are we part of God? It gets into some fucking deep shit, and you can't even understand that book until you've gone through the fermentation process. It's all the albedo process, and you're basically refining the philosopher's stone. And in the end, turning lead to gold really, I take the metaphor angle much more than the physical angle, because I've always thought people are like, well, it's, it can be literal too. I'm like, yeah, they were trying to literally turn lead to gold. But the point was the deeper point that was passed down in the stories that were told. It was a way of hiding that you can find your own truth, because the church was very opposed to these ideas. So they had to encode it within these texts. In fact, most of the secret societies that people call satanic or evil are the ones that were trying to escape the evil of the church, who were burning people for their viewpoints. And so, yeah, we have a long history of getting mad at people for believing different things and torturing them to death because of it. I had to sit on that one for a minute, I guess. That's pretty fucked up, huh? Aquaman, Daniel San. Hello. Yep. History for Granite channel for pyramid studies. Bilbo, that's funny. Thank you for putting that out there. And I recommend that as well to people. I heard that mentioned 5 minutes before I got home. I was listening to a podcast, and like, that's what made me, why I was thinking about Egypt, And he was talking about how that's one of his favorite YouTube channels. And I follow that one too. I'm very cautious not to get caught up in the speculation. Like, I want to believe the pyramids are 50,000 years old too, but they're just not. Like, there is evidence of Khufu, being made in the time of Khufu, but no, I don't believe they were tombs. But I do believe the sarcophagus was used, but for what? Was it for transformation? Was it really for sending your spirit out? Like, at this point, with the way the chambers are shaped and formed and the shafts and everything, I'm convinced that it had a purpose that was way bigger than we can understand. And knowing the piezoelectric properties of granite, along with the limestone casing, which would actually insulate it, which means that if you could harness that piezoelectricity in the rock through vibrations, I don't know, but it was smart shit. Building the pyramids was some smart shit. And you know, what happened? You know, how did we lose, I guess, the ability to connect on such a deep level? And I I was always taught, like everyone else, that it was slavery. You know, they made slaves build the pyramids. And that just never sat right with me, even back then. I'm like, well, maybe a different type of slave that's paid well and fucking comfortable. You need people that know what they're doing. You know, you have to have a lot of resources to be able to train this many guys to do this for this many years. A lot of them will die in the process. You know, what it is, in my opinion, is a group effort. Yeah, sure. You could call them slaves. They had a working class and a hierarchy and a pharaoh, which is natural for, getting things done. We think of the pharaoh as the boss, I guess, but um, as well as a divine representative of God. And divine rule was passed down to the church through from the Egyptian ages. And so basically, up until recently in history, if anybody was the leader of a country, it was considered to be God's will by divine rule. So what they did was God's will. And some people still believe that. A lot of people still believe that. I haven't seen as many red hats around though lately, and I'm not surprised. I mean, and it's okay. And that ain't too harsh on anybody. It's time to bring everyone back into the fold. Let's get together and say, hey, most Americans want the same shit. We want to be able to plant our fucking gardens or play our guitars, or knit our sweaters or tap our maple trees. I got like 15 gallons of maple sap that I'm going to turn into syrup. I was like, I'm pretty stoked. That's just so far, and it's like too early in the season. But anyway, I I still see a positive future for everyone. It's so hard for me not to. Even when I try to get angry, I find myself over it so quick. And it's because I've learned how to deal with my emotions, right? However, I mentioned this the other night. It's like, I think of it as like a wound spring. That's how I think of it. Like I said, they show like a steaming kettle for a head when somebody's angry. I think of it more as like a ratcheting spring, and it's just compressing and compressing, and you can release a little bit and then it catches again. You release a little bit, it catches again. But at some point, if you disturb it enough, it just goes crazy. And that's, I think, how a lot of Americans are. That's the angry monkey syndrome, as I was talking about. One monkey started. whole the whole group is just going crazy. It's just, what do you do? It's in our nature. It's who we are, and we can't do much about it. We can evolve on the individual level, and that's what individuation is all about in like Jungian philosophy. And so my belief was that when enough humans saw that others were happy, you know, uh, doing one thing or another, they would want to do that too, right? Like if you're poor and broke and you see the guy that's working and he has money, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna work. That's pretty basic shit, right? So the theory would go that if people who are spiritual, let's say if you're religious, that they'd all be happy and off. But then you find that's not the case. And then you think, well, why are the baddies getting all the good stuff? And then you say, well, you start questioning God, you start questioning justice. But there are some inherent things that we have within us that I think are important to remember. Most of us seek justice. Um, Lately, I've noticed that some people only want justice for people that they like, and that's sad to me. But for me, I want justice for anyone, and I know that the U.S. justice system, at least, is designed to protect everyone who's here. So it's like to live in a time where people like are literally getting shot down in the street and some people are defending it. And look, I understand complicated things. Nature, there are some anomalies. Let me just say that there are situations where things can be taken out of context or misunderstood. But in this case, at least from what I've seen, I believe that two American citizens were murdered in cold blood on the streets by a masked, you know, unidentified force of dudes. And and that itself doesn't surprise me because it happens all around the world. These things happen all the time. What surprised me was it wasn't even the response by the administration instantly labeling the guy a domestic terrorist and saying he was there to do maximum damage and kill officers. I was I almost puked at that point, but I said I'm not surprised. It wasn't even that. It wasn't even the Second Amendment, community that was really silent. A lot of gun tubers, as they call them, you might be surprised that this fucking hippie dude actually subscribes to like several gun tuber channels. I watch a bunch of veteran channels, dudes with like guns and flags in their background, dudes with accents. Like, I know that you would, that'd probably be the last thing you think a guy like me would watch. I don't talk about the Second Amendment for a reason. And it's a very good reason. And I don't want to talk about it. And it's because I don't want to talk about it. And that's because I don't want to be on a list ever in the future if something goes bad. And I've told my friends this forever. I'm like, this is why I don't even want to like, put my voice out there as being like anti-authoritarian or anything. I'm like, so one day AI is going to be able to filter through and find every person who's a problem or a nuisance. And but it doesn't matter. I'm already on probably a list. Uh, but it's just, I just think it's safer not to talk about certain things. And for me, that's firearms. But I'm really grateful that some of the dudes that do have been coming out and speaking out in favor of Second Amendment rights and saying this was wrong, what happened. But a lot of dudes were just totally quiet. And a lot of the community started to see who's who. But we're seeing a lot of that everywhere. In politics, on the internet, you're seeing celebrities, pundits. They're starting to reveal their true colors. Things like Israel and all the different situations that have happened. This is a good sign. I'm just saying there's a positive to this. People need to see that everyone is lying to them before they can realize they shouldn't listen to anybody, right? I mean, not everyone. You've got to learn to identify the people who are being straight up. And it's fucking hard. It is hard because people are very convincing. Let me see, if people are trying to sell you on something, they're usually full of shit. And I mean that. Like, there's very few situations where somebody's really trying to convince me of something where it's for my benefit. Right? I mean, yeah, I guess I've never really even thought about it on that angle. Interesting. It's like that with religion, right? There are religions that force themselves on people and force by threat of death to convert. They've got like, Hindu and Buddhist sects where people are out there begging a guru to teach them the truth, right? That is quite a contrast, you know, quite a contrast. Um, and and being modest in that spiritual belief itself. Who would want to go live, up as a monk in Tibet? Well, I would, in a different life. I can't do that in this one, but that would be pretty damn cool to go experience, you know. I'm not into like spending my life meditating, that's for sure. I wouldn't mind though dedicating, you know, a lot of time each day to that kind of contemplation in a quiet place and living that. that way for at least a while. But probably not at this age. I sure as hell ain't going to bed, I'll tell you that. I think it's like some fucking 6,000 feet or some shit like that, right? I'm gonna read up the comments. Like I said, if you got anything to ask or say, feel free to leave a comment there. Who we got here? Sarah DeFaro. Hey, good to see you, my friend. Enjoyed listening to your history video. I'm curious. He says, "What's that 1 million-year-old tool you mentioned?" It was a scraper of some sort, and I think it might have been like, I don't recall if it was like Homo heidelbergensis or something like that. And I could be incorrect on the million-year realm, but I could have sworn it was over 1 million years, and it was recently. And I saw it on a YouTube video, but I do know that there's some that are at least 200, 300,000 years, where they found more than one. I guess in the old ones, you could really debate, whether it was really a scraper, but they found, bone marks on it. But fair question, I'll look it up if I can find it. But yeah, it could have been 100,000 or 1 million. Fuck. I mean, but I could have sworn it was over 1 million because I usually don't mix those up. I know there are some that were over 100,000, but um, it's going to be really hard to find anything that old. Of course, I mean it's just luck, if you come across that kind of shit. But I always have wondered, like, what kind of past civilizations there could have been. But I believe that we've ever evolved like this? No, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not a dummy, and unfortunately I ruin the fun for myself sometimes because I want to know the truth so much that I can't even like let certain things go and convince myself. One of them is core samples. And core samples taken from several different geological locations show that there were never any heavy layers of, let's say, plasticine. This will be known as the Plasticine era. But of course, a lot of those could degrade over time, and maybe we just don't know how things degrade. We have found layers of, I think, like strontium, things like that. Like there's theories that, of space blasts that took out animals. It's just, I guess I'd have to do more research to know that, but I don't think there's been any trace that we've ever evolved this much. But at the same time, if we did and we all died tomorrow and everything we have disappeared, I mean, like, well, all the people at least died. I guess nothing's gonna. I would say, how long would it take for it to disappear? I mean, just look at like Chernobyl, places like that. Look at even huge like stone structures out in the jungle as the vines take them out and just rip rocks down and just, you know, it's a structure, then it's a pile of rocks, then it's under the ground, then it's crushed. And you think, what could have been here, say, 10 million years ago? And if there was a civilization just like ours, would we see it today? You know, from what I understand, there would be no trace left at all of our civilization in 10 million years. And I could be wrong, but that's the conclusion I drew. And I thought, God, that's a short time in history, There may be, like they said, the plasticine layer. They said that, oh, well, we'd find, the toxins or metals. But how do we know this? These are things that degrade over time. Maybe we just haven't discovered a layer from a long time ago that, is still hiding somewhere and preserved. And we'll never know. It's fun to wonder, though. And that's a great, going back in time is a great way to talk about where we go from here, right? Because there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, I sure as hell am not panicking about anything. I wanted to move out here for a reason. I'm hoping that I can grow my own food one day. I don't expect society to collapse tomorrow, but I do, and I I hate to say it, but I really have just had a strong feeling something's going to go down big. But I've heard a bunch of other people say that, and so it starts to sound cheesy and feel cheesy. I have a lot of apocalyptic dreams, and I know it's probably because I think about them. Back like last year, everything from like a forest fire where I was in a valley trying to escape the area, a tidal wave coming way up onto a hill and crashing through the house, earthquakes, asteroid impact. One time there was a space, like a meteor that affected like all these animals that started crashing, like stuffed animals in these storefronts, and they started crashing through the glass at night, and they were all coming alive. Some like Maximum Overdrive shit. Like Teddy Ruxpin on steroids. And just the other night, I had a dream of a sandstorm coming in, and we had to like block off all the entrances to the house. And but I think the craziest one was about 2 weeks ago, and I had this dream where I was at my house here, and I looked out my bedroom window, and somebody said like there's a storm coming, and I looked over on the horizon, and it was this black cloud across the sky, right, with kind of like a poofier cloud coming out in front of it towards me. And when I say black, this wasn't a storm cloud. This was like the nothing from the never ending story. This was like evil incarnate. And I looked and I was like, oh shit. And I just knew it was coming for me. And it started came across fast. And then it was just engulfed the whole everything. And yeah, I'll add that to my Cheerio happy dream list. I used to write these all down on paper. I had a voice recorder that's just loaded full of dreams. I used to have a dream journal. I have like two dreaming books, one called Creative Dreaming, and then there was one, The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda. I used to read, before I'd go to bed and practice lucid dreaming. I learned how to fly in my dreams. All of that's fun and all, but you know, I just want a good night's sleep. They're not bad dreams. That's the thing. I don't wake up with like sweaty or scared. Like even in the dream, I'm calm and collected. I'm like, oh, interesting. So it's kind of weird, and it makes me wonder what it means. I think that dreams carry messages that we don't understand. It has to do with our brains being like an antenna. You know, I don't believe that we create all our own thoughts necessarily, but the muses, right? Music. Um, we utilize different sources of knowledge. It's like the guy who gets knocked in the head and all of a sudden he can speak a different language. I mean, if people understood all the different crazy stories and things that have happened to people, like little kids knowing everything about somebody who died and saying that they were the reincarnation. I mean, it, any one story you might think, oh, that's faked, that's frauded. But when you're into that shit and you've looked into a lot of them, you'll find out that there's definitely you as a person, your energy does not disappear even after you die. I don't know how it goes or where it goes, and I don't believe that you float up to heaven in the pearly gates. It's different than that. It's a metaphor for something deeper. Anybody who's taken a heavy dose of psychedelics has been there and knows what it's like to have the little death. That could be five. I took 7.5 once grams of mushrooms, and it just blew my mind. But I think the 5 gram trip was even heavier, but different potencies, different strengths. But it was ketamine that really did it, and that's a whole story on its own. I was going to do a little documentary about my sessions, but I haven't completed them yet. So I mean, I have. It's been 6 months since I've done any, but I think it's time to kind of reintroduce it to myself, just a little bit, because it's much easier to control and it's very short lived. It's a better psychedelic, in my opinion, than mushrooms or acid. Much more reliable, and you don't have to wait forever for it to kick in or wear off. It's almost like a businessman's trip, but that's the name given to DMT. And dimethyltryptamine and I had quite a complicated relationship. Really don't like your flavor. Um, but those experiences are just wacko and weird. And I was really into it way back before. like before I even knew who Joe Rogan was, right? So when Joe Rogan came out, he became this like DMT guy, I guess, and I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I guess once you've had enough fun with it, you realize I don't want to open that gate for 5 minutes and just feel weird and have people looking at me and asking questions and seeing things I can't comprehend or understand. It's like going into the fourth dimension for a short period of time. And I guess psychedelics would be a great topic because honestly, we need them. We need them for everybody right now. You know, I always think of like every time I take psychedelics, I think of it as like reading a book again. Like you've already read it, but maybe you'll learn something new this time, and you do. You're always like, oh, I didn't know that because I hadn't, processed. But some people really do abuse psychedelics and take too much. I know I've done that in the past, but if you do it properly and with intention, it can help you understand yourself in ways you would never imagine. And I'm careful to not promote them because I've seen them do damage, but also I think we need them more than ever. I was joking that it should be like required for Congress to take mushrooms together before they can like have a hearing or like even become a member. Like, yeah, I think every politician's got to shroom with the other politicians with the public present so we can teach them about love. Half sarcastic there, but my God, there's so much hate and vitriol in Washington. It's like, dude, can you guys just chill out? Like, that's another good book. See, yeah, just read Ram Dass, Be Here Now. That's a phenomenal book. This book is written with like basically like poetry, man. Every page is like these unique pictures with diagrams and stories, and it's all about being here now. If you read it when you're tripping, you'll be like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, I feel like a revolution is coming. Something big. It might not be out there. It might be in here with all of us figuring out who we are as individuals. Very similar to what happened during COVID, where everybody was locked down. They had no choice but to sit with their own thoughts. People took up knitting or furniture repair or building stereos or making music. Like everybody got into crazy hobbies for a while. And I thought that was the coolest fucking thing. Places on lockdown, people doing shit. But then people start getting arrested for going to the park and getting outdoors and having fresh air. And it was just absolutely absurd. Like the first week, I was like, I'm not the scientist. I don't know how bad this is. So, hey, if they want to lock down for a week or two, I guess that's what we got to do. We'll see. If they were wrong, then they'll get their their due hatred towards them. But nope, they kept everybody locked down and closed and ruined a bunch of businesses, and then a whole bunch of people cheered for them, depending on which side supported it, and it was just gross. But you know, America started to shift long before that. During the Obama era, bailing out the banks, the banking crisis, all that. Um, I think they all need to just take some acid. I think they do. I don't think mushrooms would be strong enough for them. I honestly think they should take some acid. It's got to be the good shit, the family shit, though. It's got to come from like, maybe we should just, somebody up there, come on, there's got to be somebody in the Secret Service that can go dose everybody's water. Oh, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. So where are we at here? Yes, sir. What up? Hey, we got D4L. I'm going to read through the comments again to see where we're at. If anybody had any questions or anything, because I want to make sure I keep up. Um, good to see you too. Alchemical Dragons. Stoners, my phone now. God's Memory. Yeah, God's memory is also God's dream or Brahman's dream, right? I love the different Hindu philosophies on that shit. Oh, 2CB, 2CB, Eric and D4L say that. Okay, so I got some 2CB years ago and I just like hadn't seen it before and I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I was like, okay, this is wonderful. I love it. Absolutely love it. And so it was so clean and so quick. And I was like, okay, so this is a great story. I went to a Dead show in the Gorge. It was like one of the recent ones, like Dead and Company, or it could have been Fish. I'm not sure which one it was. You know what I think it was? I think it was the Fish show right during COVID where they were still like checking vaccine forms and shit. But anyway, this guy comes in rolling into our camp, this typical hippie dude, right? With like, let's just say, uh, yeah, your typical drug dealer with his hit pack on and everything. He's like, hey, you guys need anything? Need any drugs? So he sits down and he opens up his pack. He's got everything, right? I mean, when I say everything, I mean, you name it. It was a pharmacy. So I was like, I don't know. We're going to trip tonight. So I might take some doses. And I wanted to stock up for later, naturally. And I wish I still had this guy's number. But anyway, I so we had some 2CB. I was like, oh yeah. So I bought a couple doses for my friends and I, and we decided to. Well, I'm just gonna say that I went to the show. It was great, and then we came back, and then I took the 2CB, I think, and that was the funniest shit I've ever done in my life. Like I sat in this camp chair between my school bus and my buddy's car. We had like our little pop tent set up and Christmas lights all around and everything. We just sat there with the music cranked up and straight up just like, laughed and laughed and laughed about the stupidest shit. And then my buddy Scott Scoey, uh, he comes back to the camp because he got lost coming back from the show. He always does, and he's just all confused. And he's like, "Where's my hats? Where's my hats?" And we're just laughing. And I felt so bad because he wanted us to go out and help him sell his hats. Now Scoey sells awesome hats, by the way. Plug for Scoey, Rag Hats, HATZ. If you're not familiar, it's those cool patchwork hats that I have. I don't have one on me right here, but they're great hats. And he does a phenomenal job, and they're all custom. And he was going to go sell them on the shakedown, out on the strip. And I was like, I can't, dude. I just can't. I mean, he got mad at me because I was too high. It was at a or at a concert at a festival. I'm like, bro, I know you're here to sell your merch, but I'm here to chill. I got kids at home. Fuck off, sell your own hats, But I get it. He finally sold his hats and he came back and we had a good time. But yeah, good times. See, 2CB got me talking about Dead shows. There we go. Thoughts on Soma Alchemy. Thoughts on Zionism? No, not tonight. I really don't. I think I think I think I think it sucks. I think it's I think it's racist and absurd, and I think it should self-destruct. That's how I feel about Zionism. I'll just say that. Um, yeah, Zionists are awesome, guys. No, Zionists. I think Zionists are the worst people on the planet. I honestly do because there's very few cultures that actually actively hate their neighbors and try to destroy them. Like if you think about it, like who's doing the real harm, right? I don't know. Yeah, I'd rather take acid and think about happy stuff than go into that one. But yeah, there's some nasty shit going on in the world. Halo, Dion, yep. Franio, when Jesus comes back, we are in Satan's little season right now. I don't know. I still question whether or not Jesus is actually the demiurge. And that gets into some deeper stuff, philosophy about whether the God that, Yahweh, that was originally worshipped was actually not the devil in disguise, but God created Yahweh and Yahweh created man. and thought that he was God while doing it, and thought that he was the supreme leader, but really he wasn't. It was so many metaphors in that stuff, but I still believe that in the Jesus energy, rather the Christ consciousness, and I understand the implications of the cross, even though it predates Christianity by far. That that symbol is very important, and much deeper than the crucifix. I think it was just anthropomorphized by giving it the crucifix and Jesus. And if I start getting into theology and stuff, I'll probably drive myself insane. Eric says blue meanies will set them right. Yeah, those are pretty good, man. They can be strong. If you want to start growing mushrooms, do it. Those were the days. The hats. All right, who we got here? Leanna, 87. I hope you share your ketamine reflections in the near future. Would really love to hear your thoughts. Okay, I'll tell you a little secret. I recorded like an almost 2-hour video about my ketamine experience and my psychedelic thoughts, and I have actually uploaded it to YouTube, but I haven't made it public, and I don't know if I want to, because I have kids, right? I got teenagers. It's very difficult to want to share those kind of things, but at the same time, like, they've been life changing for me. Like, I mean, the experiences I've had showed me without a doubt that God is an absolute, you know, much more complicated than I can ever hope to understand, but that there's no doubt in my mind that our bodies are just vessels for our souls, right? But also that this life is very important. Living this life is very important. It's not about escaping it. It's not about evolving past it. It's not about becoming a bodhisattva. Well, you could become a bodhisattva, like, in Hindu, and come back. You basically come back to help other people. You choose not to evolve to the next level. I do believe that existence has layers, and some people can define parts of it as heaven or hell, but really they're just layers of existence, wheels within wheels. And it's a beautiful thing, but eventually it's that chaos. God decided that man would be the best alternative. Let's just say that this is pretty fucking stable compared to the places that our souls might end up and wander. And that's all from my own experience and opinion. I would never try to convince anyone of it, and I would urge people to avoid going too deep, because the things you find, you can't forget. You don't come back from that, and it's not just a delusion or a hallucination. I'm talking about well past wavy vision. I'm talking about going so deep in your psyche that you forget kind of who you are for a minute. When you leave yourself and see yourself for the first time, that's ego death. And you think you have it until you have it, and it's wild. And then you realize everything about yourself, and that you don't need to prove yourself, that you're good enough as who you are, and that your ego is who you are in this life. Preserve it with all your might. Don't let anybody tell you to abandon your ego or become a weakling. Be strong when you need to be strong. It's funny because, like, as a passive person, I'm always surprised how when I hear people talk about how, oh yeah, hippies and liberals, they're all a bunch of weaklings. I'm like, yeah, dude, fuck with anybody's family that I know who's like left, and they'll just blow your face off. Like, it's just that we don't go out seeking trouble. It's more like, I'm calm until I don't need to be calm. I guess that's back to that spring thing. But yeah, not everybody is how other people think they are, but we all put on kind of a show, I guess. And what we all really want is just connection with one another and connection with God, however we define that. Now, I'm alone in that one because I don't really have any, like, of all my friends I grew up with, they're all atheists as far as I know. Like, if I bring up the idea of God, it makes them very uncomfortable, so I just don't talk about it, which is weird because I'm 50, right? We're old. But I'm the weird one, sometimes. And I'm totally okay with that. I have no problem with that. You know, I I wasn't always that way. I've been agnostic my whole life until I had my own Gnostic experience, I guess. It was kind of funny when I realized agnostic to Gnostic, like overnight in a way, but it was more as a like group of sessions. But anyway, I'm going to go through the comments the rest of the way. Funnest trip was with a random Mongolian guy I met on a train who couldn't speak a sentence in English. Now that sounds freaking awesome. That's a story I'd love to freaking, experience myself. Yes. Yes. It's funny, I was just telling my son about people. I was like, people have got hit in the head, right? And been able to speak another language afterwards. Like, I was trying to explain how we're all connected through Akasha, if you will, and we have all knowledge available to us at all times. We just have to learn how to tap into it. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. So many people get into religions for Christianity. Dude knows research on where it came from. Seems like it's been a huge thing. Yeah, NDE is very similar, and it will show you that there's, you know, people have different experiences on those, but they can be wild. Leanna 87 says the experiences are beautiful, but one of the biggest challenges with ketamine is remembering the details right after. It can be very fleeting. All right, let's talk about that one for a minute, because I think that I'd like to talk a little bit about my K experience since somebody's asking. Um, so I started self-dosing, okay, and what I discovered was at first you start to forget everything. Your mind, you can kind of go a little overboard and lose it. Now, look, I don't recommend this to anyone. I just want to say this outright. If you do not do this by yourself without somebody as a sitter and watching over you. I had, I think, 3 freakouts where I screamed like a fucking banshee out loud. I literally descended into fucking hell, the underworld. It was the weirdest experience I've ever had, and it was part of what I consider to be like a transformation. Okay. Franio, no, do not buy ketamine from a gas station. Nobody sells ketamine at a gas station. Did I see that comment right? No, do not buy ketamine from a gas station. You cannot legally sell ketamine. It's a Schedule 4 drug. If anybody's going to try this, okay. If you go to get an infusion, you have to sit there with somebody through the whole experience, a doctor in their weird room. And sometimes they'll make you comfortable. You can wear headphones, but it's like $1,000 for a fucking infusion. Okay. It can be like, I've heard as low as $400, $500 for an infusion. Like if you do them regularly, I don't know, but it's a lot of money for one dose. My buddies and I were buying a fucking half ounce at a time for, I don't know, about the same price, like $400, $500, whatever. And splitting it. And then a quarter ounce would last me about 2 weeks. And what I would do is start out with a moderate dose of maybe 30 milligrams, 40 milligrams, and kind of go up from there a little bit at a time. Okay. But this is the thing. You can't do this yourself. You need help. If you're talking about buying it from a gas station, don't do it. You need a guru. You need somebody to help you. It's funny because during my trials, my experiences, I decided that what I didn't want, um, what does it say? You asked because you didn't know, no judgment. Yeah, exactly. You didn't know. And that's totally understandable because you can buy kratom and CBD stuff from a gas station, but ketamine itself is illegal, so it shouldn't be sold there. There might be some fake version of it that they sell. That would be bad. I'm sure they do though. I would advise always going to a legitimate source to buy anything like that. And no, Franio, it's not a psychedelic technically. So psychedelic, psyche is mind, right? And delic is, I guess, what was it? Revealing or mind manifesting. So it's manifesting the mind. It's creating an experience, but ketamine itself can be extremely psychedelic in high doses. And I would advise going to Erowid, EROWID, and then looking up ketamine, and that's the ultimate site. I've been using it for like 20 years, right? Um, you can read people's personal experiences, how much they dosed, how they did it. It's a great resource to see the experiences. But back in the 60s, they noticed during Vietnam, when they'd give it to the soldiers, they needed something to replace. You might be surprised. You hear people freaking out by taking PCP back in the 80s, right? Well, ketamine was designed to be a replacement for PCP as an anesthetic, and during Vietnam, they tried it out. And it turned out the psychedelics, it would act very psychedelic for the soldiers. They'd come back with these crazy stories about where they went and these crazy places they visited, and some of them would have like very revealing and life-changing experiences. So over the years it was kind of used in therapy very on and off randomly, but really it became a rave party drug for a long time. And when I discovered it, yeah, we took it after a concert, after we'd taken some acid, and it was great. It was a crazy experience. But when I did it myself, I did it intentionally in the quiet with headphones on, listening to frequencies or various music, piano music, orchestra, or my favorite, which was Mayan flutes or Native American flutes. And I did research on it later and found out that those flutes are tuned to like earth frequencies. You just feel it in your bones. Psychedelics open up a part of your mind that allow to music just flows completely differently. So anyway, I'm getting off track. I would dose a little bit at a time personally, and it was only after over a period of time during the week, each night when I do a dose, I could gradually increase it to where I could have a full experience but be totally aware of my surroundings. So I was in the middle of like space, but at the same time, right there in my room. And I can't explain how it feels, but it is absolutely wild. And and then you'd come to in like a half an hour and 45 minutes. But if you overdo it, you can freak people out around you like I did. And, I'm ashamed of myself for doing so. So I kind of punishing myself by not doing any, even though it's the closest I've ever been to a complete understanding of my purpose here. But I got the answer. I felt like I was in a place where I could ask the questions I needed. Like everything I'd read about going through the degrees of understanding and learning, it was like the fire burned through me, and then I was shot down this tunnel and met this entity, and like the whole experience was not just, it wasn't random. It was chaotic at first until I actually set an intention, and I started using incense. I used frankincense and myrrh and a bunch I harvested myself, and then I would also use I use smells and sounds, the tones, and holy shit, everything changed. Like psychedelics with distractions takes you away from where you need to go with them. And so maybe, funny enough, I started video, a live cast talking about where do we go from here, and we end talking about psychedelics. I guess that's the answer. I think we need to go there. I really do. I think that people need to open that part of their heart, because we can't hate each other. We're better than that. We really are. I hope. I would like to think that deep down inside, we've all got a little bit of care for each other. Just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Maria Sabina. Yeah, you mentioned that the other day, I think. Yeah. Franio, Big Brother won't allow that to happen. Oh, bullshit. Man, all you got to do is go down to your local dealer and pick up whatever you need, man. You could probably go on Craigslist or Facebook right now and pick up pretty much any substance you want in this country. Um, the drug war lost to the people, but unfortunately, the people lost too. We all lost trillions of dollars, just like we're losing trillions more now in wars overseas, fighting things that don't matter for corporate interests. And everybody's just happy with it. Well, not everybody, but I would say that the fact that some people are okay with the US, you know, the situation right now is just beyond just surprising to me. I'm kind of, what do you do? You know, what do you do? I had this paper over here. I was going to make a video like a couple weeks ago talking about, sometimes I'll just take notes. So it's like, a bunch of random thoughts, and I'll try to coherently put it together. Hell is a state of mind, self-awareness, return to Eden. It was a video about the return to Eden, and I had this idea, heaven being a trap, and like the fact that be here now is probably the best assessment I can give of this life. I have tried my whole life to like improve upon that ever since I understood to not worry. And I want to make it clear, it doesn't mean you don't care about the future. This is the one thing. It's like, be here and live in the now. It doesn't mean that you don't care, because what you learn is that your brain will naturally think about the future and it will naturally think about the past. You can't avoid that. Those things will come up because your subconscious tells you, oh, you need to do this or you need to do this. So what I'm saying is, don't force yourself to think about things that you don't need to, that are irrelevant to this moment. And I've been practicing that for a while. Like, it hasn't made me any less aware of the things I need to get done. It just makes me more aware of the moment, to live in the moment and try to be there. And, and I guess psychedelics really have taught me a lot about that. That's where I originally learned so many of those lessons. But, even though I've got it like probably a half sheet somewhere, I haven't taken it in like 2 years. Like, I just don't take acid anymore. And mushrooms, I had like a half ounce around somewhere, and I lost them when I moved. Um, there is a little bit of DMT or somewhere in this world, but everything else, it's just more like I don't really need it anymore. I was told you don't need me anymore by the psychedelics, and you'll find that some people actually get cut off by DMT. In fact, I want to take a moment to give total props to the psychonauts out there. Like, some dudes are doing some crazy research about with lasers, and like, I don't know what to believe about any of this shit, but I do know they're like trying to document the DMT hyperspace and like talk about machine elves and like what they are. And look, you're tapping your subconscious. There's no other place. Okay? Like, everything is right here. It's all right here. And but there is some weird shit, out there. Anybody who's tried DMT knows. It's a crazy fucking experience. I was buying it like a gram at a time from this local dealer before he died in his own house fire from his grow room. Poor dude, R.I.P. Man, it was so surprising. I'm like, what? How did that happen? It was years ago, but I didn't know him all that well. I met him at like a Burning Man thing, the local one, Soak, and he had this great DMT, and I bought some, and then I got his number, and he lived locally, so I would get like a gram every couple of few weeks, and I'd just smoke these, 50 to 100 milligram doses, and I just, every time it was just like, holy shit. And it works every time. Like, you don't build up a tolerance to DMT. Um, there's a theory I was listening to, because I listen to a lot of especially, what's that guy's name? Hamilton Morris. I was listening to one of his podcasts with somebody, and he was asking why they were trying to figure out why with all other psychedelics you build up immunity, but not with DMT. And they theorized that, well, maybe it's because it's a low dose, because they did an experiment with like mice, and they found that if they continuously gave them doses of DMT where it was like an 8-hour drip, then eventually they would build tolerance. So it seems to be a time duration related situation when it comes to that. And yeah, that's it makes sense, except the fact that they fill different receptors to an extent. I guess they still attach to the 5-HT2A receptor. I know that's Greek to some people. The 5-HT2A receptor is the one that like LSD binds onto. But the weird thing is that a lot of the times these molecules will, let's say, land. Okay, so LSD is like similar to serotonin, right? So if serotonin locks into this molecule, it will, How does that work? What am I trying to think of? Not a molecule, not a synapse, brain fart. But anyway, is it a synapse? No. Anyway, serotonin, when it locks in, it'll just, when it's done, it just leaves or dissolves or can dissolve. But LSD gets stuck in there and then the door shuts after it. And that's why it lasts so long. That's the only way I can really explain it. Let's just say LSD has a strong affinity for the 5-HT2A receptor. And every time I take LSD, it scares the shit out of me. I don't want to take it. Same with mushrooms, DMT, even ketamine, like any of them. Like, you are changing your mindset and going to a different place. So it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's just something that if you've done it like hundreds of times, it's hard to describe to people like that it's the greatest thing ever, but also tell them to be safe. You know, and that's why I don't talk about it on my YouTube channel. Before, I used to talk about acid and mushrooms all the time, like Teamsters. I had a whole channel just for weed where I'd share my garden. I had these giant pot plants in my backyard and I was growing indoors. I had a sea of green and a whole bunch of fucking different kinds of weed, Durban poison and white shark. Man, I miss those days. Now I just buy the shitty local weed because my state legalized pot, but you can't grow it. Go figure. Anyway, that's another story. I think I'm going to take a quick break, go downstairs and grab something. But before, I will read the rest of your comments here and feel free to ask any questions. Okay, where were we? Oh boy. Okay. What are your thoughts on NDEs? I've never had one, but I believe a heavy psychedelic experience can be similar, but I've never had one. I think that they give you a glimpse of something bigger. But also, this also happens with like people who have seizures. Certain types of seizures can induce like a very psychedelic state in people too. So it's pretty amazing. Franio, everything is orchestrated and done by design. Yes, it is. And every action has a reaction, and there are no random chances. Esoteric or as esoteric. I can't believe mushies are legal in some states. I used to think that would never happen. I always knew that it would happen eventually, man. It's just a matter of time. We will evolve, I hope. Sarah says, oh, create the hash gives you 1,000 inspirations, but takes your ability to create. No, I totally disagree. I think it depends on the person. I don't smoke hash though, but if you smoke too heavy, yeah, you got to be able to moderate yourself. So like with any drug, like think of how many amazing songs were written by stoners or people who are high on heroin for that matter. So yeah, you can be totally knocked out or you can be totally inspired, and it really does depend on the person. Cigs and alcohol, yeah, those ones can be rough. The future of our nation is out of control. It's in control. It's in control of the people. If we step up to the plate and stop being a bunch of fucking online, you know, people are just going to have to realize that like posting their anger on Twitter and X, or Twitter or X, I guess, whatever, isn't going to change the world. So when people, take back their shit, then they'll get their shit. Franio, when I took mushrooms, he says, you shouldn't make recreational, it's medicine. When I took mushrooms, the mushrooms told me to respect them. Mushrooms are demanding. That's the only way I can describe them. I call them round and demanding, and LSD is square and forgiving. And everything's a little different on them. And mushrooms, yes, they are. Fungi are older than we are by far, and they are also closer to us in genetics than they are to plants. And they should be respected and not just taken on. Anytime I've taken them for, just having a good time, it's a little too much. So, and they, I don't plan on going anywhere when I take mushrooms, but it's been a long time. Haven't smoked in a long time. Oh, interesting. He says you haven't smoked weed in a long time after your near-death experience. Well, I had a friend who had a psychotic episode, and after that, he stopped smoking weed too. And I think that pot is not good for some people. And I also think that smoking a lot of pot is bad for most people. Um, I've got my little bong here, which I'll probably take a rip of in a minute. Speaking of, unfortunately, I took one right before I started this video, and I was like, "Why did I do that?" You know, because yeah, dude, smoking makes me dumber. I'll be straight up, but only while I'm smoking, right? And so it's a choice, you know. And sometimes, like I said at the beginning, it's a burden to think about things. And if you can quiet your mind in a way that works for you, that's fine. But if it's going to cause panic, yeah, dude, don't mess around with that shit. Hello, Adam. 100th monkey effect. Yep. Alec here checking in. Hello, Alec. Good to see you, my friend. The weed they sell at the dispensary. Yeah, it can be some pretty good stuff. It can also be junk, depending on, like, God, they sell some really garbage last year outdoor shit here sometimes. I'm like, that's embarrassing for the Pacific Northwest. Anyway, I have to go to the restroom, but I'll be back in just a moment to close out if you have any final ideas or questions, because I'm probably going to go to bed soon, or at least relax for a bit. I'll be back in a minute. Yeah, I'll check. I'll check around. You can ask her. Sorry, what? I didn't hear you. I'm back here. All right. All right. We'll see. Got distracted talking about important stuff about the house and how we're gonna pay for it and stuff because we moved out here and we've got a mortgage and I've been trying to finish our other house to sell it, and I realized that so much time's passed now. I've been on unemployment thanks to the system. Woohoo! You know, a lot of construction companies don't have work in the winter already, and people are afraid to spend money because the economy sucks. But according to certain people, it's tremendous. It's a tremendous economy. Everybody loves their groceries. Um, that's just how it is. So, where was I when I was talking about shit? Smoke wax nowadays. Yeah, I was actually buying from a you bought moldy weed and they wouldn't let you return it. Yeah, I actually was. I grew my own in my backyard, and it was still better than the shit I buy in the fucking dispensary by far. They're quote indoor, and I'm very cautious about the kind I like to smoke because there's some pretty crappy shit out there. Yellow Coyote says, Carpa, since I gotten older, everything I try to take now gives me anxiety and panic. What should I do? Well, I'll answer that question. All you have to do is go onto my paid channel. You paid $20 a minute, and I'll give you personal counseling on what you should do. I'm totally joking. I would just say stop using shit. I mean, if you're getting panic from drugs, um, if you're talking, what do you mean try to take? If you're talking about just drugs, or if you're talking about weed, then I would say that it's just not for you anymore. Here's what I've discovered. Our chemistry obviously changes as we get older, and for a lot of people, they kind of grow out of weed. For other people, they grow into weed. Right? They don't like it when they're younger, and they find it helps with some ailment when they're older. I think the weed chooses the person, and for some people, like for example, people I know that can smoke all day long from you know with their cup of coffee in the morning until the last thing before they go to bed, and still function and bust ass, okay, and get everything done and live life to its fullest. Now that's it shocks me because I'm a stoner. I've been a stoner for the last 35 years, and I've taken like two breaks for probation, one for like a year and one for 2 years. And both times when I was done, I thought, it feels kind of nice to be straight, not smoking weed. And then I smoke a joint, and I'm like, all right, I love weed again. It's like something that works for me. But as I've gotten older, I've found that if I smoke too much, then it's bad. Now, I would just say this: stay away from wax, stay away from live resin, stay away from the vape, the pens, stay away from it. Just get the old fashioned, like, where's that? Yeah, like nugs in a jar. But make sure that they're from a legitimate grower, and that I don't know. It's hard to know what kind of sprays they're using these days, and I don't even want to think about it. But if you live in a state where it's legal and you can grow your own, do it. And yeah, knowing how to grow pot is not that hard. So, but yeah, it's good to stay away from it as much as possible. Depersonalization. Oof. Yeah, that's a tough one. I've had that happened to somebody I know well, and it's like, you're fine. Just let it roll. See what happens, man. It's kind of like that feeling of impending doom. I made a video about that years ago, and so many people responded to it like, "Oh my god, man, um, I've had that experience, and it's so horrible." And like, it's a matter of trying to help each other through shit like that, you know, to realize that you're not the only person, because we're all in this together, right? Prison is not a cakewalk. Hey, brother. No. No, I would imagine it's not. K2 is terrible. Yes, yes, yes. They were right to warn me. Don't stop the soap in the shower. Oh, God. I don't even want to know. Hey, man. Everybody goes through shit. We've all got our closets. We've all got our demons. And we've all had some fucked up shit. And hopefully the things we go through make us stronger. That's my hope. Everything I've done in this world, I hope it strengthens me to some degree. But I've sacrificed to not make too many mistakes, I guess. As Lid says there, stay away from the hard liquor. Oh, my friend. So, I told you my ketamine story, kind of, but my alcohol story is that I never really drank at all when I was a teenager. Had a couple beers here and there. Okay, my experience with alcohol when I was 15 years old or 16, whatever it was. I think I was 16. My dad's like, "Well, what do you want to do for your birthday?" I was like, "I want to get drunk." And he says, I was like, "I want you to buy me a bunch of Mad Dog." He's like, "Okay." So my dad drove me and my friends up to the local park, Waluga Park. First, he stopped at the liquor store. He went in there and he picked up a whole bag full of Mad Dog 2020. All right. So what we asked for. Every flavor, orange and grape. And yeah, if you know, you know what happened next with a bunch of 15, 16-year-olds, like 8, 10 of us at the park drinking Mad Dog. There was yelling, there was arguing between boyfriends, girlfriends, there was blacking out, there was puking, there was forgetting. Let's just say I didn't really care for alcohol after that for a while. And then years later, I started, I'd have a beer or so. I turned 21, had a Long Island. And then I moved in with some friends on Hawthorne, and I'd buy like a half rack of Henry Weinhard's every, weekend or whatever. And then pretty much stayed away from alcohol my whole fucking life until 2020. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and I'm bored. I'm at home. My whole family's home. Went to Costco to stock up on food before the shit hit the fan because I saw it coming. Like I was at the grocery store buying a whole thing of masks just because, just in case. N95s. And I was like, yeah, this is like in February or something. I'm like, yeah, just buy all. It was like 10 at night. I was like, yeah, I figured people buy these out pretty quick. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, that virus over there. He's like, oh yeah, that's not gonna come here. And I was like, I bet it does. It was like a week later. They're like, masks are sold out. I was like, oh good, I stocked up. So yeah, we were the family that went down the neck, after that to Costco, bought a bunch of food and toilet paper, not because we thought they'd be out or because there was a shortage, but because there would be a shortage because people thought there'd be a shortage. So yeah, we stocked up on everything. And while I was there, turns out Costco had some pretty cheap vodka in gallons. So I bought a bunch. Just put it in my storage. And you just put the vodka in the storage and just, you know. But no, that didn't last very long. I started drinking it. And then I started drinking more. And I would say that's about when it started. I started drinking liquor really. I mean, I drank a lot before that on and off, but like at parties or events, but never like that. And I got to the point where I could drink not. I'm not like down to like a fifth a day, but I could do a fifth a day if I wanted to. And I said, this is bad, that I've got to quit. And I told myself, and I did. And I still, from time to time, have liquor, but I was like, no, it's only beer for me. But then I get stronger and stronger beer. I mean, this is, I like the IPA. It's like 9%. I choose the stronger beer because the same price and it's stronger. But I'm very careful about how much I drink. I'll space it out over, I don't chug, I'll be as cautious as I can. And the same goes with cannabis. Honestly, on the subject of weed, I haven't smoked as much pot nearly as I did when I was younger. I've cut down on weed, on kratom, on booze, on everything as I get older. And I think that's just kind of a natural tendency. So people who worry about just like being wasted until they die, you're eventually either going to die young or you're going to quit on your own. And hopefully you can quit on your own or with help if you need it. If you have a serious problem, I urge you to find community. Like for some people, AA really helps. I had an issue with it, so it didn't help me. But that's not because I didn't go for alcohol. I was forced to go for weed. They made me go to AA meetings. And I was like, oh my God. A dark room with a bunch of guys talking about their alcohol dreams and how awesome it was. I remember back in the day. It's like war stories for alcohol. And there's nothing wrong if you're like, oh, last year I did this and now I'm recovering, or the year before I did this. These are guys like 20 years ago when I had my last drink. I'm like, bro, you got to get your head on straight, man. I'm sorry. In all respect, if you've been in AA for 20 fucking years and you haven't drank, then you're just there for the community. Quit talking about alcohol. Get it off your mind and go out and go join a sewing circle or do something more, But people get to know each other. I get that. As long as you're with the community that matters, that's fine. But if it helps you, I just feel like if we're constantly exposing ourselves to that shit, and that's why people lose friends when they quit using drugs. That's why people have to give up their whole friend group when they stop getting high when they're young. And especially with things like meth and coke, which I won't even go into those topics because now I'm not just a good boy all the time. I mean, there were days when I had my own problems, but I wouldn't call them benefit. Things make me a numb monster. So I stay away from any powders except ketamine. That's a different story altogether. And maybe a bump once in a while. That's it's got to be the right time, but shouldn't talk about that shit anyway. Oh boy, I saw a bad question at the end. I need to go through these though. My drinking was getting bad. Yep, it happens. Good of 2020. Nice. Projectile vomit. I've never done that. Well, not that I know of, but maybe with the Mad Dog, but I probably blacked out. Yeah, it's nothing worse than like the truth is when I talk about getting, the fact that I was drinking too much, I might wake up in the middle of the night and have a couple and puke if I didn't eat dinner or something, or have a bad headache. But I was never like, I've heard some people like vomiting all over everything themselves and waking up in a puddle, and like I wasn't that bad. I've never been like blackout drunk as a kid. But alcohol, if used responsibly, can be an amazing tool. And there's the question I saw. Leanna, it says, any salvia experiences? That's one I will likely never try. Okay, salvia. Let's go back in time. Circa, what, 2000... 2007, 2008, maybe. My friend comes over, and this was, mind you, a guy who had stolen from me in the past. Like, I forgave him, but then he stole from me again. And then I was looking for him to kick his ass, and then he apologized online, and then we were starting to be friends again. And he came over and we hung out, and he just gave me this bag of salvia. He's like, you want this? He's like, yeah, I got some. He's like, it's too strong for me. I don't want it. He's like, just be careful with it. And it was like 60x. So I was like, all right, cool, man, thanks. So some time passes and I decide to try it. I put a little bit in a bowl, tiny bit, little pinch. Maybe took a hit, and holy shit, I was just projected into the craziest place that I could ever imagine. And then I tried it again down the line, and it was like all I could see with these giant M's, like McDonald's arches, is all I can describe it as. But like everything was swirling together, and that was it. Twice, never did it again, and I'm still hanging on to that same salvia all this time. But in the meantime, people have asked me, "What do you think about salvia?" And I'm like, "I've got some if you want to try it." And I've had some funny experiences watching people. I'm like, "I'm warning you, it's really strong, but I you could try it." And I gave some to my buddy once, and I had to like hold him on the couch. I do not recommend salvia, um, unless you have somebody who can physically restrain you. People have been known to get up and walk away, and this could happen also with ketamine. I can imagine, in my experience. uh, but it's not as likely from dimethyltryptamine or DMT. So it seems like more of a safe bet with DMT. I mean, I'm very well versed in all psychedelics that I've tried, and I really don't talk about it very often because it just seems a tacky, and b, like I said, I have kids. But God, I mean, like, I talk about books I've read or great shows I've seen. The greatest story ever told was the psychedelic experience. Like, I think when I was like 17, 18, I got this book. I remember I went down to Powell's Books and I looked in the section on psychedelics, and I got this book called The Psychedelic Experience, and it was written by Timothy Leary and Ralph Metzner. And it was based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it talked about the bardos and going through these layers of death and being rebirth and ego death, set and setting, explained how to have a proper psychedelic experience without, getting all tripped out and having a bad trip, because a bad trip is not inevitable for anyone, but a bad trip can be induced by either a bad surroundings, set, or setting. So the set is your mindset, right? Like how you feel at the moment, and the setting is where you're at. So you want to be in a comfortable place where it's safe, and you also want to have the right mindset. But unfortunately, there's the catch, because a lot of people need them because they have the wrong mindset. And so you need a guide at that point. Um, Funny as it sounds, that's my long-term goal, is to help guide people with psychedelics. I was really trying to go for this last year and figure out how to do it. I was going to take some courses so I could get certified to be a psychedelic coach. And then I'd like started getting these like, emails like, "Oh, we're giving $10,000 off our psychedelic coaching course." And I was like, "I'm out." What do you mean fucking $10,000 off? What am I going to pay, like 20, 30 grand to go get accredited by some random group of people just so I can be in your in group? Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to commandeer psychedelics just like they did with fucking weed. They're trying to take it over. They're trying to make it their own, you know? The corporations and, the people who ignored psychedelics for so long, but were just waiting, drooling to, like, take advantage of it. It's sad. I never want to buy my drugs from a corporation. I'd rather buy my psychedelics from a private manufacturer, because I know people who make psychedelics do it because they love the experience. Most of them, not all of them, but you know, I don't know. It does bother me that the community gets commandeered. Anyway, I should probably go. I'm getting kind of tired, so I'll just read through the rest of these comments here. The opioid epidemic. Yep, it's absolutely horrible. It is. Traded a bottle of cologne for a bump of Special K. Oh man. Yeah, it's one of those things to do by yourself, or not by yourself, but in a quiet place by yourself, but with somebody else preferably around. Uh, a guy trip sitting over Zoom, salvia trips. What? Are you kidding me? That's fucking hilarious. Like, what are you gonna do? Reach through the screen? Oh man, that's too much. Well, I feel like I can talk about everything now. There was a time when on YouTube I was afraid to talk about drugs. I was afraid to talk about murder, or God, anything that's a bad word, anything like that. And now I guess that, it seems like there's just no barriers, no borders anymore. Like, it's kind of weird. It's like back to the Wild West of the internet, which I kind of like, but at the same time, I don't know. I like it. I guess it's not just the internet itself, but rather because I don't use social media. I just use YouTube. And I make it a point. I've never been on TikTok once in my life, and I've done that purposefully. I was on Twitter for about 3 or 4 months. I was using it like maybe like 4 years ago or something. I had something to say and I was frustrated, so I set up an account, realized how toxic it was, and got the fuck out of there. Then Facebook, I canceled that years ago, like everyone else. But yeah, sure, it would be nice. I've actually lost concert tickets because I didn't have a Facebook account. And I was like, I refuse to sign in and be part of their bullshit. Like, why would I be a member on, such an evil platform, but I'm still using YouTube? So it's like, well, what do we do? Well, I use YouTube because it's where I can share videos. It's where I can do, I feel like it's my only home, and you got to have at least one. And so I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the subscribers, the people who are willing to come out and listen to my bullshit dribble. And so, I'm wishing you all the best in your endeavors in your life. And I don't do this for the money, obviously, because I don't have sponsors and I don't have ads. So, what I've noticed in the last year or so is that so many people on YouTube, even accounting for the half of the new YouTube channels being fucking AI, then the other half of them are just in it for the money. Like, they don't even stand by their own principles. Like I was saying earlier, you watch this like a whole. I watch a bunch of veteran channels and Second Amendment channels, and it was so funny to watch which ones went quiet, after Alex Preddy got shot, and which ones came out and said this is wrong and bullshit. And there's this one guy, I think his name's like Colin Noir or something like that. He's this black dude who has this. He's like a big time gun YouTuber, and he's always talking about guns and like everybody's like, where are you? Why are you so silent on this? Because he's in a situation where he has sponsors. He doesn't want to anger his sponsors, and he doesn't want to alienate his audience. But it's like people are like, but wait a minute, do you stand for the Second Amendment or not, right? And I've seen this not just with that, but with so many different topics. Like, what do you stand for? Are you not willing to speak your true feelings on what's really going on? And I've noticed this concerted effort to like demonize empathy for a while, and it didn't go well. I'll just say, especially like I remember when Elon Musk went over there and said, I think empathy is like, God, what did he say? Like, empathy is the worst thing. Like, there was this whole thing about, and then everybody just jumps on board. All these bootlickers, like, oh yeah, empathy's horrible, empathy's bad. I'm like, okay, so what if your kid's dying? Like, do you even understand what empathy is? Like, I've never seen so many people jump on board so quick with what other people tell them to believe. And I guess I've been shocked by the amount and level of stupidity and ability for people to just believe what they're told by billionaires. I made a video like maybe, I don't know, a few years ago. It was called Simping for Billionaires. And this was before I think even Elon had anything to do with politics. Like, I was trying to understand the whole Elon thing. I was like, here's this scrawny, doughy douchebag, who, says he, basically disowned his own kid, doesn't spend time with his, families, talks about family values and how everybody should have a bunch of kids. Like, that's his thing. And then we need to go to Mars. And meanwhile, he's just like, all he does is just works and treats people like shit. And I think, what a miserable life. That's his choice. It's his life. But then I see people going, he's the greatest guy. He's an innovator. And it was like kind of the moment where I was like, did we really raise a whole new generation that just simps for billionaires? And yeah, years later, now we're definitely there. I mean, like, it's just crazy where we're at right now. Um, I I don't understand why people believe what they are told by people who only have an interest in making money. When I was told Donald Trump cares about the country and the people, I just never could understand that mentality. I never believed it. Never. Never once. Because I know that guys like him are selfish. That's all they care about. Business people care about business. Business doesn't bode well with people. And that doesn't mean I'm anti business or anti capitalist. We have to survive, we have to trade. I get that. But some people are so out of touch with reality that I don't think that they could ever understand what it's like to live as the average American, wondering if your next paycheck's going to come through, or if you're going to be able to afford groceries that week, or pay your mortgage, or get off unemployment finally because your job's been shut down for a while. And Americans are tough, people burrow through it, but the people who the people who tell people to work harder are always these fucking, I just picture pigs in suits. It always brings back like Pink Floyd and Animal Farm, Orwell. It's not that I don't understand why there's hierarchy and why I don't understand why there's wealth, but why people allow people to literally stomp their faces with boots. I need a quick breath of fresh air. It's only Tuesday night. Gotta pace myself. Oh. Oh God, embalming fluid. That's bad, dude. Good night, esoteric. What happened to the chat? I don't know. AI has been. My comment was removed. How? My comment was removed. How about that for a lack of empathy? What? You know what? It's so funny. I've actually got a lot of. Over the years, I've seen a lot of comments on YouTube like, somebody removed my comment, and it's always an assumption. Like YouTube decides what it allows to post, but sometimes shit just gets fucked up in the transition. I can't even delete comments from here, I don't think. I don't even know. I'm using my cell phone, but it's hard to tell. People have a hard time thinking for themselves. Yes, they do, my friend. Been looking for work for 6 months, 4 weeks off unemployment. Oof. Yeah, dude. I'm actually like, mine's going to run out soon. The company I was working for was just out of work, but I worked last week, but I've been working on my other house to sell, and I've got to sell that so I can afford this one. And it's road for like 6 months. So I'm trying to figure out like how I can get this done, get the house sold by spring, and then find a job around here. Because I live out in the fucking country now, and there's not a lot of work out here. I mean, I do construction. There's construction, but I don't want to do commercial work or travel everywhere, especially not drive to Oregon every day. And I'm hoping to find something local. But ultimately, as Americans, we can do it. Like, we can work hard, we can start our own businesses. I think if people were willing to break a few more laws, then we'd be okay. And what I mean by that is like, so maybe I do construction. Maybe I'll just advertise and start working for people without a license. I know what I'm doing. I don't need some oversight. I've had two different contractor licenses, so it's not like I don't know what I'm doing. But I realized all the licenses is paying a fee and taking a class and paying a fee to the class so they can make money because they're working off the state. Also, you can learn about what. Do you think when you get a contractor's license, you learn anything about construction at all? No, not a single thing. It's all about taxes and bills. All they want to do is make sure that you get them their money. It's nonsense. Like most things, there's no real proof that anybody knows anything. So it's a weird world. So a guy could show up to your house and have a contractor license and be wearing Carhartts and be like, yeah, man, I'll do this job for you. Yeah, I've had my license for 5 years, yada yada. But it means nothing because all you have to do is learn the legalese, and it's an open book test that I studied myself for like, a few days and went in and took and got like 90 something percent. Like there's nothing to it. It doesn't take that long. And and there's nothing about construction. You don't have to prove that you understand construction at all. So I'm just saying there's a lot of fields like that where the state just wants their money, and it's always been about tax money. And then all that tax money goes to fund like who knows? Who knows? Maybe it could be a roundabout or a pretty little divider in a road, but it could also be a bomb with your name on it going off to bomb civilians in Gaza. So, cheers to that, right? I mean, I think I last year made probably like a half dozen videos about Gaza, and I only think I uploaded like one of them, if I even made it public. Like, you ever heard that you should write things down that you feel, and like writing a letter to somebody, at least when I was younger, it's probably like typing a letter now, but I think physically writing is very important. If you don't sit down and physically handwrite things at least a little bit each day, I would highly urge you to do so. I mean, like I was saying, like, yeah, just look at that. Look at that perfect handwriting. I'm joking. No, but those are my capital ones. But I actually used to sit down and write a lot more, and I had a pretty good alphabet going. I even have my own tagging alphabet. I won't even get into that. But I think handwriting is important, and writing a letter to somebody that you're pissed at and then just burning it is so fucking freeing. You don't have to send it, right? Some people even put it in an envelope with a stamp and never mail it, and that's okay. Hell, if you want to, you could probably put it in a mailbox with no address on it, and just at least you know you nailed it, right? But for the most part, it's just about getting it out. And I've made at least, I don't know how many percentage over the last year, over my more controversial videos, I would say that at least, a third of them I've just deleted off my phone before I even uploaded. And another third I've uploaded but never made public. And I thought about why. And I was like saying earlier, I want to make my channel I want to make my channel positive as possible. I was like, this year, I want to be able to inspire people to do great things and to know who they are. And I still think that's possible. I think it's possible while still being aware that we have fascism in this country right now. And I really think that that's important to acknowledge that that word is okay to use in this case. It's an attempted coup as far as I'm concerned, but at the same time, we can fight against it easily by just being reasonable. I mean, you think about it, there haven't been any ICE agents killed, right? Um, People are still reasonable. American people hold back, but I don't know how long they will, when they're pissed off. And I really just want to see a future where we can all just fucking get along again. I'm not opposed to reasonable borders and deporting criminals, but I this is not what anybody signed up for, obviously. So I think the calmer minds are finally speaking out and being like, okay, how do we get back to normal? you know, but I want to make it clear I don't believe there is a normal. I don't think there is a such thing. I don't I think that we need to create the future that we want to see. And I really think that that takes each individual. I think that we're at the point where we can't look up to other people to fix the country for us. So for everybody who is talking about midterms, that's fine. Okay, look, the midterms are great. The next election may come and Democrats might win. But can we please get a new party here? Can we please make a change that's worthy? And in the meantime, the American people might get health care, some basic, the basic needs met before we're sending off money to Israel, right? Or other places. We can dream. right? We can dream. I mean, that's not even a politically left or right view. That's just human view. Like, that's fully America first. Like, that's what it should be, right? Taking care of Americans. But we have an administration that makes people like me out to be domestic terrorists. I can't imagine if I showed up somewhere with a firearm, like concealed with a permit, and just got blasted, like what my family would do. I can't imagine how my family would feel, and how Alex Preddy's family must feel. And I've noticed that triggers a lot of people. I've heard a few defenses, that, well, he should know better than to carry a no, 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 no. That's not how the Constitution works. The Constitution works by allowing Americans to carry firearms. I mean, if you have a permit, you can carry it concealed. Because you see these pictures of people marching in the streets with the AKs and shit, or like that married couple that showed up to some protest with like rifles and were threatening protesters with it. Eh, It's a selective outrage, right? Like, yeah, they don't care. They're conservatives. It's okay. And so many true colors are being shown right now on both sides because the Democrats are cowardly as fuck. Like, they haven't done anything until now. Like, now that people are speaking out, finally some politicians are starting to say stuff. Like, I don't buy it. Y'all have been like the only ones with power and you haven't done anything. So I don't have faith in anyone in Congress. I would say that I still love Bernie Sanders no matter what. I still think he has the heart of the people. And it doesn't matter if he won or not. I was shocked to learn that a lot of Bernie Sanders voters, when he was forced out by the DNC, that he actually, a lot of the Bernie voters went and voted for Trump. People are like, no. I was like, yeah, dude. It's not about whether a person's a socialist or capitalist. It's about people just want somebody who gives a fuck. They want to think somebody cares about them. Like, that's a totally human need. But I'm here to tell you that neither of them do. Neither of the last, well, yeah, I, yeah. Very few politicians give a shit, and the ones that do don't. They get kind of forced out, right? So, oh, all right. Where were we here? Yes, some nice no, taxes. Can't think of one. Yep, roads and transit systems. Indeed. Thank you for the donation, as to Erica. I appreciate that, my friend. What do you think of Tulsi? I'm going to be honest and say I don't know enough about Tulsi Gabbard to really have an opinion. I don't. I don't know. I would have to. I've seen her speak a couple times. I'll be honest. I'm not that politically active as far as I don't. I like I said the other day. Politics are the best when they aren't happening. Like when you don't hear about it, right? So there is one guy. What is it? Jesse something maybe. I don't remember. He's out of Maine, and I think he's running for the Senate. That guy's a straight fucking shooter. I was like, don't run for the Senate, dude. If you ran for president, I would straight up vote for you today. Like, this dude tells it like it is, and you can tell he's honest. And there are a few other people that are honest. My thought is like, I still have this suspicion, like, everyone seems to have good intentions at first, but does everyone get corrupted in the end? Is there no way around it? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, is there any way to like beat the club? As Carlin said, it's a big club and you're not in it. How do you beat the club? And this is why a lot of people voted for Trump. I want to say on his behalf, this is why a lot of people voted for Trump because he wasn't in the club. They fucking hated him. They did not want him to win. But then at some point, a lot of people caved and said, all right, let's do this. And hey, it's about going with whoever's going to win. They're just ass kissers. That's the whole point. They're like, that's the whole point of bootlicking. You're just whatever the boss tells you. And even if you know something's wrong, right? So I don't know if there's any answer to it. I don't know if we have a solution. I don't know if we can solve the problem. Um, many problems that we have, like, but I would like to believe the shit can't get better until it gets worse, and it will get worse. But I know it will get better, and I don't know how bad it will get though. And I really do believe that something's shifted. Something has definitely changed. I feel like the gloves are off for a lot of people. Like I said, I've heard this a lot of times, but that was really the last straw for a lot of folks. The people who are kind of moderates who are like, I don't want to get involved. The people who don't usually comment, the people who don't usually talk politics, they're coming out of the woodwork now. And even Trump's panicking. He's like backing off on his whole. He's not calling the dude a domestic terrorist. Like, he's being careful now because he sees that he's losing support fast. If you start fucking with the Second Amendment, dude, you start losing everybody. But he'll never back down because he's too much of a fucking, he's too egotistical. It's his own ego that'll eat him alive. And I've kind of always figured that Trump wouldn't even make it through his term. But, I don't want to watch the party implode. I don't want to watch, well, the party can implode for all I care. But I just want to see it fade away and something better take its place. I'm willing to vote for any party other than those two. Like I said, I'll never vote for a Democrat or a Republican again in my life. Like, the fact that they're all so cowardly. I mean, I'm not going to forget what the DNC did to Bernie, and then they didn't even have primaries, and they just threw in Kamala. And then you got Trump, and the fact that nobody's standing up to him. It's there. It's disgusting. And that a guy had his first, second, and fourth amendment rights like completely annihilated in broad daylight, and that all the red hat lackeys are out there saying, oh well, he shouldn't have been in the way. So you know I guess that was the moment where America just said, we don't care anymore, we don't want to hear your fucking bullshit. Like, for me personally, that was the moment where I stopped debating anybody who tells me that, like, well, protesters shouldn't get in the way. I used to try to explain my position and be like, but they weren't really in the way. Or, and a lot of the times they are bots, but no, I know a lot of the people I used to talk with are like, they're normal people, they're real human beings. But I'm just completely done with it. I'm like, no, I know what I saw. I'm not going to be gaslit. And I think a lot of people are figuring that out. Like, the patience is thin, with people who try to tell me that, well, you shouldn't have been getting in the way of ICE officers. Like, I'm just, fuck ICE officers. I don't care. That's just, there's no excuse to fucking shoot a guy in the street 10 times in the back. So, we can all have our own opinions on it, right? What's up? Is this thing broken now? I was supposed to quit vaping on New Year's, and I haven't actually bought any of these. And then I went and got a little thing of, because I got like 3 of these little bodies, and so I just bought one little thing of juice and one of these little things. So I promise, I'm trying to quit. I'm doing my best here. I keep thinking, in my heart, I know the things I need to do for myself, but sometimes the habits override. Yes. Roads are paid for by the taxes on gasoline. That's a great point. Supposedly, and also, like, road tax, like through trucks, and when they do registration, you are correct. I honestly have never done a full breakdown of where every tax goes, and that would be an interesting thing to do. You know, Maybe that's something I'll start. I like looking into investigative stuff like that. That would be kind of fun to do. I've always, back in the day, I wanted to do like investigative YouTube stuff, and I was like, no, too many people doing it. And it takes so much time, and like trying to like build up enough money to do it. It actually takes a lot of energy, but um, yeah, that is true. Roads are paid for generally by the tax on gasoline, but The middle ground people are unrepresented. Yes, they are. We are. Cameron Walks, sup, Carpo. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. I want to address that before I go. I'm probably only going to spend a few more minutes here, even though it gradually builds up. Now there's like 29 people, so I don't want to leave too soon because I want to stick around. But I gotta go do whatever I do. I mean, I got evening stuff to do. I guess maybe this is my evening stuff. Maybe I'll just hang out for like 3 hours. I don't fucking know. It depends. You can make donations. Maybe I'll stay. Half joking. Um, the middle ground people are unrepresented. I fucking love that. Because that's a discussion I was having earlier. I I was saying, for all the people that say, you know, well, this is what America voted for. I was like, no, this is what something like 27% of voters voted for. But, you know, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to accept every single thing that's going on and everything that happens. It's not it's not like, well, we voted for every single thing that a person does. I had issues with shit Obama did. I had issues with shit Biden did. Every president I've had problems with things they've done. But it seems that this time around we've got the golden boy who, said he's going to run on peace, and now he's out there threatening Iran, bombing Iran, capturing fucking Venezuelan leader, bringing him back to the U.S., bombing Venezuela, using whatever secret weapons, threatening to take Greenland, threatening to take Canada. And there are still people who sit by and go, well, yeah, Trump's just playing 5D chess. It's like, okay, look, can we just shake hands and agree to disagree here? But like I said, like I won't even have the debate anymore. Like anyone who's still MAGA at this point has either got to be so arrogant and egotistical that they cannot imagine being wrong about anything, or is the dumbest motherfucker on the planet Earth. And there was a time when I'd be cautious about saying that because I don't want to offend anyone. But no, really, if you're still MAGA, if you're still like in that red hat group where you think that this guy is doing good things for the country and that he's telling you the truth, I just want to puke in my fucking shoes because it's like you can see clearly that he's lying to you, to your face, about the things you see with your own eyes. So you're being willfully ignorant. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. I don't want to like point the finger, but I have to because it's like, how many people are really like that out there? Like I said, I haven't seen a lot of red hats lately. It's like, and it's okay to admit that we're wrong. Like I said, like, we all make mistakes. We all vote for shitty people. We all want the best for this country. We all want a better future for our kids and our families, and we want better health care. We want jobs, and we want to have stability. We're not going to have that until we come back together and demand what we want, right, as people. And I really believe that. I really think that eventually, yes, we're going to have many Americans coming together, and I've already seen it happening. I've seen a lot of pissed off veterans. And when you piss off the veterans and you piss off the militias, you know, a lot of these guys, they can see through the bullshit. Okay. You've got the keyboard warriors, like I said, the gun tubers, the 2A group, the ones who are too scared to talk about this. Those aren't the militias. Those are the pretty boys that have the fancy magazines that go out shooting on the range. We're talking about the backwoods dudes who have fucking full lockdown fucking gear, everything, and are ready for action if they ever get tyrannized, because that's what a real militia is, right? These aren't the guys posting on Twitter. So they're out there. And I really hope that these groups, are willing to stand by the Second Amendment and protect everyone in America, every American. I don't care what color you think the state is. Okay. So what I see going on is, from what I understand, this invasion of a blue state, which has from what I understand, something like I heard it has 89,000 immigrants, illegal immigrants in Minnesota. It's like, wow, that's a lot. And then somebody said, and Texas has 200 or 2 million, over 2 million. So why isn't ICE doing these operations, kicking in doors in Texas? You tell me that right now. If this is really about immigration, why aren't they kicking in doors in Texas? And there's over 20 times more illegals there. You know exactly why. And anybody who pretends differently is just mad at them liberals, just wants to own the libs. So politics has become about hating the other side rather than producing any substance. And this comes from the Democrats too. They ran on a platform of just beating Trump. I'm like, that's not good enough. I want promises that Americans are going to get their shit taken care of. So, you know, yeah. And people are like, well, we work for our own stuff. Yeah. Then stop taxing us. You stop taxing us, and then I'll do my own shit. I'll pay for my own health care. I'll pay for everything on my own. We already do anyway. You know, even if you get a healthcare plan, how much is your deductible? How much do you have to pay? How much does it balance out? I did the math. I haven't had healthcare my whole life. I had Oregon Health Plan when I could afford it, but right now I don't have anything. And I thought it would have cost me like over $100,000 by now. And I've never even gone to the hospital. So yeah. But at the same time, wouldn't it be nice to just be able to get covered for basic preventative care? Wouldn't it be nice for me to be able to go into the doctor and just get all the tests done to make sure I'm okay? And I'm scared to do that because I really don't feel like I can afford it. So that's the world we live in. Cheers to that. But I'm willing to sacrifice my teeth and my health as long as my country can make sure that Israeli citizens can get free college and health care over there. Because Israel is way more important than the US. Yes, Israel first. Israel first. Hoorah, hoorah. I think that's one of the biggest revelations people have had over the last few years. Couple of years, anyway. I was screaming this shit a long time ago. It's like, you know, they're killing civilians. Oh well, they shouldn't have, you know, they shouldn't have attacked on October 7th. October 7th. I'm like, but they're killing everybody. Like, no, no, well, you got to get Hamas. They're in those tunnels, but they're bombing hospitals and schools. Oh well, they're putting the tunnels under the schools and hospitals, but they're literally targeting healthcare workers and emergency workers and doctors and nurses. Oh well, they're helping the enemy. It got to a point where it was like we all learned that pretty much all these people are full of shit. They're everything between bots and paid, irritators online, if you will. Israel has gone like overtime with propaganda online. I was getting all bombarded with all kinds of shit on YouTube about there were all these posts from Israel about um how these soldiers are returning home, and there was this little picture, and it was like, congratulations for your hard work. And it's like, why am I getting IDF posts on my YouTube feed? Same thing with a whole bunch of right-wing conservative propaganda that I can't get rid of. Even though I hit like ignore, it just keeps coming back. So it's just the world we live in, man. Everybody's trying to make a dollar. So yeah, username, driving home from a 16-hour day. My man, holy fuck, dude, that's a long ass day. Well, username, I commend you for working a 16-hour day. I haven't done that in like 30 years. That's a long fucking time. You're driving home, and then their Woken Brunch says driving to work and listening. Great start to the day. Well, thank you both. I really appreciate you all for even listening. Trump should have been a comedian. Okay, reading through the comments. Tim Walz poked Trump's ego one too many times, and this is the result. Yeah. Well, there was something pretty revealing. Pam Bondi said, Oh, we'll consider pulling ICE out of Minnesota if you hand over voter registration. So let that sink in. Yeah. And it would be great to have health care. Yeah. Bumper sticker that said, "Work harder. Israel needs your tax dollars." But you're afraid you'd get your window smashed in. And you know what? That's funny because you probably would. If you got a bumper sticker that was anti Israel, I have seen, like, I knew that, let's just say, okay, I got to be careful here. I am not anti Jew, okay? I'm not anti Semitic. However, I have found that many Zionists, most Zionists, are very belligerent, angry, and hostile and violent. And they teach their children to fear everybody who's not them. They teach their children that they are the best race and the best people in the world. They are a racist cult. I firmly will say that anyone who's a Zionist is in a cult. And it's disgusting, and the kind of shit that they represent and teach to their people and their kids, like going and kicking people out of their homes they've lived in, generations and generations, and just walking in and taking it. Like, i can't even I can't even talk about it because it's just so infuriating to imagine. Nothing you can do. Some white guy from New Jersey says, "I want to move to Israel. I'm going to be a Jew." So he's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm going to take these people's houses." And there's a video of this one guy. He's like, this fat ass loser from New Jersey. She's like, "Why are you taking my home?" He's like, "If I don't take it, somebody else will." Like, that's their attitude, the entitlement of these people. So I'm just saying, I think that, you know, there's something to be said about that culture, that they are angry and violent. That's all. And it's sad because they are actually, between Israel and the United States, we are the biggest threats to the world. And while all this shit's going on in my country, the most frustrating part, it's not even Trump, dude. The guy's going to die probably on a choke on a Big Mac in the next couple of years. I don't even care about Trump. It's about the people behind him, the Stephen Miller. He like put a vampire cape on that dude, and I swear to God, he's like the villain from hell. You got the fucking, this fucking Pam Bondi. I like, hide your cross, girl. I mean, lying every day. All these people. Stephen Miller, like the dude who got picked on literally in school. I watched a whole psychological like outtake of him, and how he was fucked with in school and he wanted revenge. Here we go. Another bullied dude. And then you've got the thin-skinned Trump, who literally, I think he sent somewhere upwards of 100 tweets 2 nights ago. Like, after that shooting, he was so mad about the response that he tweeted a bunch of random shit. 85 tweets, like, overnight. Who does that? Like, the leader of my country, the representative for me and my people, is staying up all night on his own Truth Social platform and tweeting 85 times. I think I need to go to bed. I can't even think about the stupidity out there. It makes you want to hide in your own fucking, in your bedroom and just never come out. Well, at least for me, I love my house. Guess it depends on your bedroom, right? Flip through these comments. Holy shit, it's been 2.5 hours. Yeah, I agree with you. That comment right there says it. It's just demoralizing. All of our leaders go along with the pure evil like this. I grew up thinking there were more adults of character and integrity, and now it seems like there's basically none. Dude, I'm with you, man. I grew up thinking that being good was important, and it fucking doesn't even matter anymore. Okay, Cameron says, "Have you watched Candace Owens?" Yes, my wife loves Candace, and I don't like Candace. I'm sorry. I know that she tells the truth a lot of the time. I just feel like she goes a little overboard. It's just hard for me because I don't like the sensational stuff, and she did some deep dive on like Macron and his wife being trans and all this stuff, and I'm like, That's just not my thing. It's just not. Like, I want to know shit about my own country and stuff, but I just feel like at a time like this, if Candace Owens has tackled the Trump administration, I think that's the best thing she could do right now. But I don't think she has the guts. I think she would be too scared. And I think she also knows it's probably the most important story for Americans right now. But she's going to talk about other things. So if you have the most popular podcaster, they should be talking about the most important thing. That's my opinion. But I feel like a lot of people are just scared to talk about these things because they don't want to lose their sponsors and their audience. And I think that's wrong. I think it's important sometimes, right now, especially, to sacrifice and talk about this shit and call it out for what it is. um, Char says, hard to take Candace seriously when she believes dinosaurs are satanic conspiracies. Yeah, I didn't want to go into that. Look, Candace is a little girl when it comes to conspiracy theories. I mean that with all respect. I grew up with conspiracy theories. I know all about half the shit that I've heard her spout, like in the shorts. I've watched some videos because, I want to know what other people are watching. And my wife watches it, and she got kind of mad at me because I talk shit about Candace. So I was like, all right, look, I have watched a lot of her stuff. I really have. And she rubs me the wrong way. She is naive as hell. Okay. And I always give everyone a fair shake. Look, I've listened to a bunch of everybody I don't like. Ben Shapiro, right? That's how I got to know what a douchebag he was a long time ago. I can't believe it took fucking right wingers this long to realize Ben Shapiro was just a little pussy ass fucking Israel shill. Like, how could he not be? But now you've got a new guy. And I was going to make a video about this, and I decided not to because it's just not my cup of tea to talk about Nick Fuentes. And, honestly, this guy is the biggest garbage, racist, rage baiter piece of shit that I've ever seen come across the screen. And honestly, I wasn't even shocked. Like, we're at a point now where it's like, oh, how edgy, bro. Oh, you're scared of women. You're scared of minorities. Like, grow a ball sack, What are you going to do? Be boxing with Jake Paul next? Like, it's a clown world, my friends. It's a fucking clown world. And if you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, then I'm surprised. If you live here, you should. He's like the new Charlie Kirk. Like, if you think Charlie Kirk was bad, which, I didn't care for his fucking views at all, but I don't think he deserved any of what he got. Like, I thought he was a douchebag. But I still respected the fact that whatever, he wants to debate college kids, fine. That's fine. He's not hurting anybody physically. Words are important. Freedom of speech is important. But this guy, Nick Fuentes, like, I mean, everybody should be putting him down. But there's a huge faction of racist pieces of shit in my country. I mean, we know this. And they love to cheer behind closed doors because they're scared to say that shit in public. It makes them feel tough, good. They want to talk about the great replacement, and they think that they're gonna take our jobs, and like in some cases that's true. There are some places where immigration has really fucked up the job market, and that should be dealt with. But why aren't the employers ever punished? You'll see how the world works, right? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Blame the victims, not the perpetrators of the people who hire them and try to sneak them on. So it's the people with the money never get punished. So money buys influence. It is what it is. And, as long as they're making their billions, we're good to go. Yes, sir. Ew, Ben Shapiro. Used to go shopping. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm open to any, like, I used to like Joe Rogan. I used to listen to a bunch of his shit, and then I realized, wow, this guy's just inviting on the same old people, and holy shit, he has nothing to add. And oh, now he's an expert and on the moon landing and everything else. It's like, what happened to just somebody who's modest? I tried to listen to the Sean. I mentioned this. I was listening to the Sean Ryan show, and I was like, "Wow, this guy is really dumb." And then somebody's like, "Yeah, I guess he had a guest on, and the person was like saying that somebody was a patsy for this murder," and he's like, "What's a patsy?" Not everybody maybe has heard the term patsy. I get that. But if you're a US podcaster, you should know, talks about conspiracies and government stuff. If you've been involved in the government or the military, you don't know what a patsy is. Like, it just kind of opens up like a whole line of credibility issues with a lot of people. Anyway, if you have a history in the military and a microphone and a black shirt, you can make a good living on the internet. You can even sell coffee if you want, whatever. Like, I've never been impressed by the fact that somebody's a veteran. I respect the veterans heavily, and I'm grateful for them for serving the country, because we need people, like that. And there are a lot of respectable veterans who post great content. But some of them just, God, they just abuse their bullshit privilege. Like, oh man, I fought for this country and blah blah blah. And by the way, buy this product and that product and that product. It's like, man, you know, I don't know. That shit needs to be called out. It really does. It really does. So I gotta go. I really do. It's been like fucking 2.5 hours, man, and I gotta go. Yeah. So I appreciate you all for coming. I really do. It's so funny. I saw that there was 25 people, and I just looked up and I saw like a grid of 25 people, and I was like, oh God, why do I even do a live cast? That would be so weird to do it in person. I love you all. I'll see you next time. You guys sleep well, and look, if you guys don't have a Ben Shapiro pillow, you need to get one now. You've seen the Nicolas Cage pillows, but get yourself a Shapiro pillow. And I think Mike Lindell is making them. Peace out. See you next time.